far as visitation, it gets a lot of local visitation. As you can see, this gentleman here just came up a trail that goes down here and connects to the rest of the trail system in the park, which is about 80 acres, as well as going out this way, it goes down to the old cemetery and a regional detention basin that was recently built, and then connects to the trail system that goes up to the tank site. So we get a lot of hikers here, walking their dogs, a lot of neighborhood people, but I want to think it's in the area of about 50 or 60,000 people a year.
Wow.
Here, including me. I live just over the hill. So anyway, today is a great day. We appreciate the contributions that the Tenneys have made to the Prescott community and the state of Arizona, and I think we've got Lucy Mason's going to speak a little bit about that. But it's been a long time that they've been major contributors to Prescott, and they're a big part of the reason we have the quality life we have here, and the great place to live that we are is due in large part to families like the Tenneys. This was part of a $20,000 donation to Acker Park for park improvements through the Tenney development. We were able to do this Ramada as well as some other improvements in the park, including that trail there, which is new. So that $20,000 did a lot of improvements to this park, and again, one of our most visited ones. Also through that development agreement, there was a significant amount of money that was contributed to the regional detention basin that's down in Acker Park that just finished last week. That will help a lot of the flooding issues that we have downstream. So it's a real benefit to the community, and it couldn't happen without the contributions that we've gotten from this. So with that, I'm real quick on words, but I'm going to turn it over to a couple other people. Councilwoman Wilcox would like to say a few words, and then Lucy, and then we'll turn it over to the Tenney family and do the unveiling.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Jean Wilcox, been on the council for almost 4 years now, and I too live right over the hill. I walk Acker Park probably 3 or 4 times a week, and I love it. And also what I love is standing way over there and looking at this hillside, which I can see from my house, and see how it's been developed. Whoever designed this had the right idea. It just fits so nicely within the landscape. It's a beautiful subdivision, and I'm really proud that the Tenneys had the idea to turn the ranch land into a very nice development. You can walk downtown, use the trail system, or walk down Senator Highway. It's just a perfect place to live. And it's so nice that you have the generosity to donate to the community things like this pavilion, which can be used by everyone. And the detention basin, I think, will be a tremendous help in controlling our stormwater problems. So thank you, Tenneys, and all the relatives, and all the people involved in the development.
Thank you.
Lucy, you want to say a couple words? More than a couple.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. It's like, I'm a Tenney too. We talk in paragraphs. Harold, thank you and all of you for inviting me to honor your dad at this point, and honestly your mom too. I didn't know her as well, but I call him Uncle Boyd. I can't help it. Uncle Boyd was such an inspiration to me, and we found each other through church. We just moved in here, and Sandy saw me come into church, and ultimately we became like the best friends within 2 minutes, and still are. And then Uncle Boyd found me in church and introduced himself, and one day he came up to me and he grabbed me by the arm and he said, "You're a Hancock, and our families go back 70 years in this state." Well, right then and there, he became Uncle Boyd, and then he was, I believe it was about 20 years he was in the Senate. Is that right?
Yes.
Harold?
Nine terms in the Senate, 1 in the House.
Right, before term limits, and so he served this whole area so well. I know that he is also responsible, I believe he's responsible for Highway 69 actually getting through, and so major accomplishments that he did in serving all of us. For me personally, I used to go to him. I was on Prescott City Council for 3 years, almost 3 years, and I would go to him with different issues and just seek his counsel. He was just he would get tired, and I would think that he was just I'd worn him out because I talk a lot, And I would say, Uncle Boyd, I'm sorry, I probably worn you out. I need to go and just, and he says, no, this is what you do. And he would just start, listing off all the things that I needed to be thinking about. What an inspiration to me. It was never give up, keep smiling, and keep working. And that was for the right things. And don't let anybody push you around. And I just appreciated that so much, even when I got into serving in the House of Representatives. Great family. Harold has become like a brother. Harold and Kitty and Diane and Janine, who's not here. Lark, Aunt Pearl. By the way, I have to mention Aunt Opal, Sandy's mom, who honestly, I just feel such a strong family connection with everybody and admire everybody's ability to serve and to not only for this area but for other areas as well. And I really appreciate the connection and all that you have done, and to honor Uncle Boyd today has really been an honor for me. Thanks.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. It really means a lot to me and to our family. I'm the youngest of the 8 children, and I realized that many of you didn't know my mom and dad. In their prime, my dad was about 6 feet 3 inches tall. My mom was 5'3", so they were quite a striking couple. And Dad, I think Lucy would be my witness, for a politician, to use that word, he was probably one of the more quiet, unassuming people you would ever meet. And I think that's what made him so effective. So I put some thoughts down. I could go on and on. Harold asked me to speak a little bit about my mom. So please bear with me. This will take about 5 minutes. Rachel Tenney tribute. Rachel Teeples Tenney was born October 10th, 1913, 104 years ago in Preston, Idaho, as a very premature baby at a time when access to medical care was limited. Her odds for mere survival were slim. She grew up on a farm in the potato belt of southeastern Idaho. She married Boyd Tenney April 10th, 1939, and moved to Prescott, Arizona, his hometown. I remember Mom talking about the joy of being in a big, strong family, yet she missed the fertile ground of the Snake River Valley. One of Mom's lifetime quests was to make this little patch of land green and cause it to blossom as a rose. She tried her whole life to accomplish this with very modest success due to the nature of the soil and the lack of water. But when driving south on Senator Highway as a boy, you could see a virtual grove of trees surrounding our house as she tried to beautify our home with very limited resources. Speaking of home, this is the primary feature of Rachel's life that I would like to share. Our home was noted for its openness and hospitality. Besides my 8 siblings, many, many others lived with us for various lengths of time, from cousins who may have had family struggles, to a young lady from Guatemala, to a young man from the Navajo Nation, to even a large part of an entire family. Scarcely do I remember a time when we did not have other brothers and sisters in our home. How did this work? When someone sensed a need for stability and love and community, they just seemed to end up living with us. Those who lived with us were not made to feel as guests, but were rather just an extension of the family. Chores were assigned, and they just learned how our family functioned by joining in the work. I have reflected on this unique aspect growing up in my family. There was no pretense, no entitlement, and no exception. If you're available, you're expected to jump in and participate and do your part. I think the example of Rachel was paramount in this attitude. She was never too busy to listen to you and discuss your day. She was sympathetic to your struggles and helpful in finding solutions to your problems, but the odds were that you would be working side by side as you discussed life. In her support of my dad, Boyd, as the old saying goes, behind every good man is a good woman. That's an old saying now. It's not so much that way, it's even. This maxim could not be truer than the success of my dad, Boyd, achieved in life. How could he have sacrificed decades of his life to service in church and public life without Rachel? Who would have been there to organize, feed, clothe, and encourage each of us? Neither Boyd nor Rachel needed public life for what they did. Their motivation and the rewards were internal. It was devotion, pure and simple, devotion to each each other, to church, to children, and especially to God. Besides countless hours of cooking, cleaning, washing, ironing, and driving us to various activities, Rachel engaged in other pursuits unique for her time. She worked as a full-time LDS seminary teacher for a few years in the 1960s. I can easily recall, and I'm sure Harold and Diane will agree, many days coming home and seeing the big part of our kitchen table covered with books, scriptures, charts, maps as Mom prepared her daily lessons. And speaking of education, Rachel never passed an opportunity to further her learning. I remember having a discussion about whether remember having a discussion about whether I should go to college. It was assumed that we would each gain as much education as possible. It didn't hurt that as the youngest child, every one of my siblings had already gone to college. I remember daily conversations about current events, topics, politics, what we were studying in school, and gospel topics. When Yavapai College opened, Mom enrolled and poured herself into learning. Surrounded by students that were 50 years her junior, she was right at home in the classroom. It was Rachel that lit a fire in my heart to learn and grow and engage with other people and to become more well-rounded and fuller. And speaking of being fuller and more well-rounded, Rachel was famous as a short order cook. Frequently, people showed up at our house unannounced to visit or even spend the night. Miraculously, Mom would open the cupboards and fridge, and in a matter of minutes, we'd have a hot meal waiting to be served. On a very modest budget, I never went hungry. It is true that I had to compete for the best pieces of chicken or meat that was piled high on a plate on the table, but we were all satisfied at the meal's end. Rachel as a friend. It's no exaggeration to say that in all the years I spent with Mom, I never heard her engage in gossip. Never. She was generous to a fault, even to someone who would be critical of her. We were not allowed to make negative comments in her presence. If the conversation drifted to the negative side of a person, Mom would invariably offer comments of praise or compliments about that person, even when they might have been critical of her. I have never seen such charity and such gentleness in judgment. Rachel's adversary in poor health. As she aged, Mom's health began to decline. Between arthritis, degenerative spinal disease, and the effects of diabetes, her stamina faltered as she aged. Her spirit was truly willing, but her flesh weakened over time. She did all she could to manage the home, but when we would come up to visit, living in the valley, I remember many times going into her bedroom and sitting in a soft chair and sharing every detail of our lives as she reclined in bed. Being with her kids and grandkids was the highlight of her life. Despite pretty severe pain and weakness, Mom was never one to complain. It has been an honor for me to recall a life up here on our hill, growing up as I did. I felt as a child, and even more as I have grown up, that I was born into a magic family that could do anything we set out to do. The wings given us was the result of many influences, including brothers and sisters, faith in God, and strong religious community, hundreds of relatives, literally, and powerful and widely respected father. But no person has molded me for whatever success I have enjoyed more than my Abraham Lincoln, my angel mother. How I wish that all of God's children could be blessed with this type of a woman in their lives, as my mom, sisters, and my wife are. In summary, Rachel Tenney lived a simple, dedicated, and devoted life. She shunned the spotlight and preferred to work behind the scenes, but her contribution did not go unnoticed. To this day, when her name comes up, people lavish praise on my mom. My tribute to her is that you don't have to be loud, as most Tenneys tend to be, to change lives. Find your purpose and dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to it, and the fruits of your labor will speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. You got me crying now. I can't even speak. But I want to thank also Michelle and Joe. They've been just great to work with. We just kept in contact. I call Michelle my new email buddy. So how we come in and things were going well, and they've been great in the city of Prescott. Just a couple of things to correct for Lucy, and I won't correct anything on Ron. Actually, my dad, when he was in the Senate, Interstate 17 was scheduled to go up the Verde River straight to